Welcome to UFO Buster Radio, episode number 4 of the UBR Truth Seekers interviews. And ladies and gentlemen, as I've told you before, when we have information that's pretty much shared in UBR Truth Seekers, I tend to use it because you guys are the fans. You guys who are the ones that listen, have those conversations, share information. And there was one particular piece of information that was shared with us. And let me tell you right now, we are thankful that we got that information. We reached out to the individuals that are going to be part of the upcoming Skydancer Paranormal and UFO Conference in Houston. But I'm not really going to give you the info on that because I'm going to let the people that are involved in this, the ones that are producing it, and one keynote speaker that, let me tell you, some of you already know this guy, and there is, I don't even need to introduce him. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce right now Derrel Sims and Deborah Burns of the Skydancer conference down in Houston. And guys, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you guys being here today.
Looking forward to it. This is a great one.
Our pleasure. So
listen, a lot of the folks are really excited about the fact not only that you guys are here, but also that this particular conference is happening in Texas, in Houston, and it apparently is growing in popularity, isn't it?
It has grown very well, and we're very excited by the last one. It was standing room only, and Deborah did an outstanding job in promoting it.
It hurt my feelings, though. We had to turn away cash-paying customers who were there to learn about new things, and we didn't have a spot for them to sit or stand.
That is amazing, and that really talks to the success because just last year there was what news report they were reporting that UFO conferences were dead, that people didn't want to go to these things anymore.
I don't believe that at all. I've got conferences scheduled from the first of this year, and my next ones will be Contact in the Desert after the Skydancer conference we have here. I'll be going to Contact in the Desert. I'll be going to Istanbul, Turkey, Costanza, Italy, United Kingdom, and 2 other conferences before I ever get to Europe.
See, there you go. And that's just evidence that, sometimes there's a bit of disinformation in some of the things you hear about UFOs and paranormal, huh?
Yeah, I hear all kinds of things like the aliens aren't abducting anybody anymore. Those people need to get back on their medication because that's just not true.
There you go, Derrel. So if you guys, again, if you're not aware, we have Derrel Sims, and we also have on here live the producer of this particular conference, Deborah Sims. Now, Deborah, we're going to get to you in a second. So we're going to take some turns here because I said yesterday on the podcast, I'm not going to sit on here. Derrel sent me a bunch of information, and let me tell you, there is a ton of info. And folks, if you're listening, go into the description, check on the links, and get some reading done, and really, get up close and personal with who you're about to listen to today. But Derrel, your experience with abductions and just the UFO phenomena is extensive, and it happened really early on.
It certainly did, Manny. I was a captive audience, as I call it. By that, I mean simply I was 4 years old in 1952 and didn't have a clue what was going on. Something was in my room one night. I opened my eyes, sat up, and there he was, an alien being walking toward the wall, and I thought he was going to bump into it. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. There was a little bit of light in my room, and I couldn't understand this. It's wintertime. It's freezing. I've got lots of covers on me, and he hasn't got any clothes on. And I can't figure out what's going on. And when I thought he's going to bump into the wall and who is that? What is that? That sort of thing. He apparently heard me think that, and telepathically he must have heard it because he turned around and he looked at me very intently. And I was rather shocked. And I heard something in my head. I'd never heard anything telepathically in my entire life. And I heard him say, "It's awake." And he realized he had made a mistake at that point. So the big thing I learned about that whole event was, the biggest thing for me was that when he turned around and looked at me, as 4-year-old children might do, if somebody's standing there naked in front of you, I noticed he didn't have a TT and he did have a belly button.
Oh.
All that's kind of amusing, especially to a 4-year-old child. But after investigating for 40 years, you kind of figure out that if you don't have a navel, you weren't born. You were hatched,
Right.
cloned, or manufactured. And if you don't have genitalia, you weren't born either. That's another proof you weren't born. You're not making any more of them, not in that fashion anyway. And that was really a shocker for me as a kid. Even I could figure out something was wrong with this picture.
Yeah, that is a little weird to experience something like that, especially at a young age. But it's something that didn't stop at that point, did it?
It certainly didn't. I had about 10 events over a period of 13 years. My events started in 1952 and ended in 1965. 67. And I was kind of blown away by the whole thing. About 10 events. And I'll just mention one or so more. But basically, the second big event that happened to me after that was when I moved to New Mexico. And I was outside one night and shut a little door on this little building. And there was someone standing behind the door. And it was the same cosmic skinhead that always gets me. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in front of a 7-foot tall praying mantis being. And that was another event. And the last event was pretty horrific. 5 entities that do not show up in any UFO literature whatsoever. And I've seen pretty much all of it. They showed up in my room at age 17. And it was a pretty bad experience for me. They were not there to abduct per se. They were there for other reasons. And it was pretty horrific. It ended quite violently, and that was the last of my abduction. What turned me into a victim to an alien hunter was when my son was 6 years old. They came and got him, and the problem with that is real simple to me. You can mess with me, and I'll get over it. I'm a big guy. I'm from Texas. I'll figure it out. When you mess with my kids, I'll come after you, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Now, that is quite a story. And let me tell you, you're right. I mean, it's one thing to mess with you as an adult. You have experience and stuff like that, but, go after children. And really, if you think about it, that's how it kind of started with you, right? So they went for the innocent instead of someone that could defend themselves.
Well, it seems to work better for them that way because generally you can program children much earlier and they don't even realize what's going on, especially when you tell them you won't remember. And a lot of times they don't. And as soon as an alien walks into the room, he immediately, that program, like a hypnosis program, starts on you, and you end up under their control fairly well unless you know how to break that control. And I do teach that to abductees that are interested in it.
That's amazing. And by the way, in the live chat today, we have Ronnie Dawson and Zachariah, and they both say hello. They're making comments right now as we're speaking live. And Ronnie Dawson says, yeah, kick E.T. in the butt. He ain't got the gonads. I'll just say gonads, Ronnie.
Yeah.
But there you go. And that's true, you know.
So not much.
What was that, Derrel?
He's got a real small rear end, so there's not much to kick.
There you go. You might just miss it entirely if you're not careful.
You might.
But by the way, Ronnie Dawson is also from Texas and an experiencer himself, so he's got his own story to tell, and he's often on here a lot. But Derrel, how did you get the moniker Alien Hunter?
Well, the moniker came from me, not from myself, but from a journalist who was interviewing me one day, and she listened and listened and listened, and her eyes get bigger and bigger, and she said, "Oh my God, you're hunting them. You're the alien hunter." The next day, a few days later, I was on the front page of Rendazzo's magazine, UFO magazine, and there was a huge alien head and blood red letters, "Alien Hunter," with my story on it.
Amazing. Now, in reading some of your bio, I see that you also are involved in things like discovery of certain implants in individuals who have come in contact with aliens.
That is true. In 1960, when I was age 12, I discovered the concept of implants, not because I was brilliant or smart or anything else, but because I was the victim of that experience. At age 12, in Alamogordo, New Mexico, I got picked up in another event, and in that one, they inserted a silver sphere on the end of about an 8-inch needle-like device, and rammed it up my nasal passage and broke the bones of my nasal passage, and the needle object went back behind my eye, and it was extremely painful. So that's how I became familiarized with the colonization process of the cosmic skinheads.
So no, when you're saying cosmic skinheads, are we talking like things like grays?
We certainly are. They seem to fit the bill.
That's the first time I've heard the term cosmic skinheads. And Derrel, I'm going to have to use that a lot from now on.
I'm afraid it's going to cost you at least $3 every time you do.
There you go. That is fantastic. So, no, besides that, you did have a history with working with certain 3-letter acronym government agencies. And so you spent some time learning some things there as well?
I learned some things. I volunteered during the Vietnam War. I left college and joined the Vietnam War effort. I didn't like the war, but I figured it would be better me to be there than someone else's kids who either, number one, weren't going to make it back, or two, were going to make it back in shambles, basically, mentally. And my family are Native American, Indian, Irish, Celtic, and kicking butt and taking names is all we've ever done our entire history. So for me, it was just a continued experience. That was my reason for volunteering. And I never intended to go die for my country. That wasn't the purpose. I was going there to make someone else die for their country and end the war a lot quicker. But the bottom line is I didn't have to go to Vietnam. I was sheep dipped, or the best way for people to think about that is simply picked up and placed inside the Central Intelligence Agency through a group of people referred to as the State Department. Mm-hmm. And interesting how that happens. But anytime you see an embassy in someone's locale, like if Venezuela gets all straightened out and everything, and we put a nice embassy over there, and the State Department gets ready to do that, I assure you that's about half of it's us.
So as of recently, so you're saying as of recently, have you had any personal experiences, continued interactions with these cosmic skinheads?
The only real action that I've had with them is usually through other people. Although we did take a trip, I took about 7 of my investigators up to Colorado, and the reason I did that was because one of them gets there. In fact, he took a witness with him the year before, and the witness watched him get abducted. And I thought, this would be a great opportunity for an alien hunter. So I took 7 of my investigators up there, and long story short, we were there for, I think, 8 days. And for 7 days, they never showed up. I ended up getting altitude sickness, and I couldn't sleep hardly at all for that period of time. And on the last night, the very last day, they came about 3 o'clock that morning, and rather fascinating. That's the closest I've come to an alien since then. And he was outside my tent. I could see the shadow of him on the outside of my tent, but he did not look like anything I'd ever seen before. He was about less than 3 foot tall, and his head was at least a third the size of him, and kind of a gray type being, but they have different models, and I'll talk about that later if you want to talk about it. But basically, that was the closest interaction I had to him, and he confronted other people there too. And then they boogied when they figured out that it was a trap.
Amazing story. So now we come to 2019, and I don't know, maybe 2018. And Deborah's there.
People channeled a whole book of dead rock and roll people. It's called For the Record, the Book of Rock and Roll Afterlife. And it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and some other places. But I channeled some of the 10 most iconic deceased rock and roll icon people, Stevie Ray Vaughan, John Lennon, and a bunch more, Freddie Mercury, and more. And each one told me their story and what they wanted to parlay to us as the reader about how to make our life journey a little more easy and a little more less scary. So it was kind of like bullet points, things that we already know, but we needed to be reminded of. And each one was different. Their whole tone about it was different. In fact, at our event, I'm going to have a table and I'll have my books for sale there where people can actually buy one and take one home if they like.
So I saw on the website for the event that Derrel was requested back due to popular demand.
Yes, at our last event, we videotaped everything, and we had a big demand for videos of his last keynote presentation at our event in January. So we wanted to change it up a little bit, the topics and such, but Derrel had to be certainly a keystone part of the presentation because he's very well known, and people from all over the world clamor to come to him and share things or ask him questions about their own experiences.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're getting some degradation in the feed here, but because it sounds like they might have missed some of what you said. So Derrel is a very popular, well-known individual when it comes to ufology, and definitely someone you want to have in a conference regarding the topic. But you're part of the topic as well. So you're from that paranormal sector, which a lot of people deal with,
and ability for others.
It's really good that you can use that as an avenue to keep that aspect of yourself working and alive and functional. Because a lot of people will take that and they will actually just put it to the side and just bury it and not practice it.
Well, Manny, a lot of people, they pray a lot. And one of my prayers that I say every day and have for many years is to pray. I pray to be of service. And people think it's odd that I pray and that I channel and I'm involved in all this paranormal stuff and I still pray and I'm very much into spiritual stuff. But I pray to be of service. And in my view, I have all these gifts, and if I don't utilize them, I'm kind of curtailing and putting a glass ceiling on my ability to be of help to other people.
No, you're absolutely right. So now we have this Skydancer conference, and tell us more about, besides Derrel, because we all know Derrel by now, but besides Derrel, who else do you have on here that's going to, be there to speak to the people and answer some questions? A lot of people go to these conferences because they have some really deep-seated questions that they seem not to be able to get answers to.
Well, we've got one of your hometown boys. We've got Daniel Allen Jones is coming. He's from Dallas, and he does the Vortex programs and presentations up your way.
Right.
And we're real excited to have him join us for the first time as a speaker. He's helped us out in other ways before, but he'll be speaking about the Aurora, Texas incident. And he's also going to be talking about some other paranormal and cryptozoological occurrences. That'll be two of his presentations. We also have another Texas boy, Jim Roberts. He's going to be speaking each day, Saturday and Sunday. One is about the giant craft that's near the Earth. And then he's also going to be speaking about some of the visual evidence of things on Mars that we get photoshopped out of seeing a lot of times.
Right.
We also have as our keynote speaker, we're real excited to have Mike Bara, who Derrel has worked with many times. Everybody sees him on Ancient Aliens and many of the other UFO shows on the different cable networks. But Mike's going to be speaking each day, but he's delivering the keynote address. And he's going to be talking about, for the keynote, he's going to be talking about Apollo's 50th anniversary and what we really did find when we went to the moon.
Sure.
And he's also going to be doing another NASA-based one called the actual secret space program. So he's going to be bringing some things that's going to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up because it rings so true, but we've been shielded from it all these years. We also have Miller, who is a friend of Derrel's. They're going to be presenting a couple of topics. They're going to be talking about transgenics and also about pregnancies. People will be pregnant. They'll go for their prenatal visits to the doctor and such, and they'll wake up one morning and they're not pregnant anymore, and no evidence that they've ever been pregnant. It's like here today, gone tomorrow. And Derrel's done a lot of research and investigations along these kind of cases, and they're going to talk about that Sunday morning. That's going to be their big topic about that. So if anybody has any interest or experiences based on that, this would be something that would really pique your chill bumps, I think.
Your chill bumps. You guys got the greatest catchphrases. I love it. So here's the thing. I got a question for you guys. So you're doing a conference today, 2019, and, ufology and even the aspects of the paranormal have been around for ages. Is there a connection between the two, do you guys think? I mean, because you're in the paranormal side, spirits and things like that. Derrel is dealing with UFOs and aliens. Is there a connection between the two?
Well, my answer to it first is while I was out in Los Angeles, they had a party and they made a big cake that said Alien Hunter meets Ghostbuster. And I was meeting Barry Taff. And Barry Taff is quite famous for his ghost investigations, this sort of thing, and paranormal investigations. In fact, I made a movie of it. One of them was called, I forget the name of it, The Entity. That was his case. Later, and I told him about this myself, I said, the big question everybody asked was, is one and the same? Basically, you're looking at the same story. And I told him that, he said, I have no idea about the alien phenomenon. He said, you'll have to ask Derrel about that. And I said, there's distinctly differences. And I said, specifically between ghosts, aliens, demons, and angels. I said, every one of those groups have different signatures that they exude or leave as a result of the experiences. So the paranormal overall is, in my opinion, different than, quote unquote, the alien phenomena. The alien program is something quite different, although because of the use of the realm of the infrared, ultraviolet, and visible light, other dimensions, and paranormal realms, that's kind of like an open radio channel. It's like saying, you got two different groups here. Which one owns the radio? That's like asking two ticks, who owns this dog? And it kind of doesn't make any sense. The dog is big enough for all of them.
Well, too, and Derrel can confirm or deny this, but I believe that some individuals are maybe susceptible to being affected by both realms. Mm-hmm. Because if you have sensitivities towards the paranormal, it might also make you a better candidate for abduction or some other kind of alien experience. I don't know that that's 1,000.
That is fantastic. In one spot, UFOs and all kind of stuff. Do you think that's a place that kind of embodies what is the paranormal?
Well, actually, I did a presentation on Skinwalker Ranch, and then I highlighted events that we've had in Texas and around here that were very, very similar. And it was amazing because the reason Skinwalker Ranch got so much attention is because so much of the events happen in one locale, where a lot of these events are happening, but they're happening in different locations. And so that's one rationale for it. But Skinwalker Ranch was, in my opinion, a huge mistake the way NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, and I know some of the scientists who were involved in that personally, they even admitted themselves that they should not have gone in there with, quote unquote, the science and all of that, because they basically didn't find anything out other than it's all real, it's all true, and there's nothing they could do about it. And whoever was running that show literally was in total control of everything, including everything about them and their equipment. So I think they made a huge mistake in doing that. They should have used other skills and other abilities to look at the phenomena. They should have used an alien hunter someone like Deborah and other people to go in there, you would have gotten far more information, and it would have still been going on. There'd been something happening that would have been reportable, other than, wow, amazing, it scared us half to death, and now it's gone. We don't know what's going on now.
They might have even found collusion or something. You never know.
Hey, that's a possibility.
Collusion between aliens and paranormal.
And, that could be, right? Because we talk about the both of them possibly being from another dimension, interdimensional beings, spirits, and things like that.
Yeah, dimensions is a very interesting phenomenon to hear about and to investigate, for sure.
So, sadly enough, they're saying that right now that we're losing a lot of the audio. Don't know why that is, because it looks pretty clear at times here. But let's continue on, because hopefully in the replay it'll all be good. So I got to ask you guys, basically, when you think about a conference like Skydancer, what really is the aim of that public service, basically? Because we know it's where people of like-minded thoughts and feelings and need to research and understand are going to go to. But how does that help that individual in going to a conference like Skydancer?
One of the things that we do, Manny, is every other one, we try to make more of a Native American slant to it, because the oral tradition of the native indigenous people, they all speak about the Sky Brothers or their origins of their people coming from the stars. There's much of that all over the planet. So there's a big interest in that amongst the public. Our first event was a big influenced along those lines, and the reaction to it was phenomenal. So this time we tried to make it a little more towards the space program, secret things that people are not told about, but we have photographic and scientific evidence to support what we're about to show people. So it's a platform that people can get information that's not just made up. It's not somebody's effort to try to get rich and famous at the expense of the public. We want to present information, and like Derrel is an investigator, and he has to have hard science. He has to be able to duplicate the evidence, or he doesn't want to deal with it. If it's not real, he can't be bothered with it, and that's a good way to approach this, because it keeps the scientific method in the foreground of all the activity. And I think that's what gives him such credibility all over the world with his investigation.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. And that's the thing, too. And you hit it right on the nail. A lot of reasons why people don't go to UFO conferences and participate in things like this is because a lot of it is based on, turning a profit, for a lot of places. And it's one of the things that I like when I went to the R.H.A conference a couple of years ago with Daniel Allen Jones was there. And that is because it basically was, it was a small town, small conference, and people were coming in from everywhere, but they were there because they had experiences that they wanted to know about, besides also getting to know this, this incident from the 1800s. I mean, it's not something that happened, 1990 or something like that. It was 1800s. You got to love things like that.
Exactly. Texas is a real microcosm for all of these things. We have Bigfoot activity, there's UFO stuff, paranormal stuff, ghost stuff. Whatever your area of interest is, Texas is like a microcosm where you can pursue and investigate pretty much to your heart's content, and plus find other like-minded people that are there to join you in your search.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of history when it comes to ufology and UFOs in Texas. I mean, look at Cash Landrum. What an amazing incident that was.
Absolutely.
Actually, I lived right down the street from the Cash Landrum event when it happened.
See, there you go. That's later, absolutely perfect.
I found a man who was there before Betty Cash and Miss Landrum got there, and he saw the event and part of it, and got scared and boogied. But I later met him, and he's never come forward and told anybody about it.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I did get a question here from Ronnie Dawson. Again, Ronnie Dawson from Ranger, Texas, an experiencer himself. And Ronnie had two questions. He says, Derrel, do you have physical evidence of ET visitation? And his second question kind of tied in some way to the discussion about, I guess a long way from Skinwalker Ranch. But I guess, what do you think about To the Stars Academy and their Adam project?
Well, the first big question on is, do we have evidence of the aliens' contact? The answer is yes. And I'll give you a big slice of the pie here real quick. Besides the fact that I've done 25 surgeries, conducted 25 surgeries thus far, the last one being in India, in New Delhi, India, regardless of that, those 25 surgical interventions, which have netted us some interesting and fascinating evidence that Los Alamos, New Mexico Tech, the Constellation Laboratories, York University, Stanford University, and others have looked at and fairly been amazed at what they're looking at. I've also received other evidence as well in my investigations. I've got Bigfoot evidence. I've had hairs and off of the Bigfoot for a good night since the early 1990s, and recently, within 2 years, got a urine sample and a fingernail from a adolescent Bigfoot. So there's plenty of evidence around, but people just don't know how to find it. So I wrote a book on the phenomena on how to find that evidence called Alien Hunter Evidence in Light, for people to follow what I did so they don't need me or anyone else. They can go find it themselves. So that's number one. Number two, there are different groups that are emerging right now, and the Stars is one of them. And I laud all of those efforts, I really do, because when you have only one big UFO organization, they tend to get infiltrated. They have in the past, and they, in my opinion, always will be. I am an independent investigator. I stay independent of all these people, and there's reason for it. It doesn't mean that I don't cooperate with them or provide evidence for DNA testing. I do. My point is that when people find something really remarkable, or they think it's earth-shattering in their view, they don't go to their major organizations. They come to me. And they know that it's going to get studied, it's going to get looked at, it's going to be done in secrecy and privacy until they're ready to reveal it, and it's not going to disappear on them, so to speak. And that's the big complaint I get from other organizations. That's just the truth of it.
So, Deborah, we actually have a question for you, and that is, I guess they're saying channeling. Is that channeling? Is that something that you do frequently, or your mediumship? Is that something that you often practice?
I started doing it really actively and in groups. I started it in 2009, and I've been doing it pretty much, I would say, weekly. I don't do it every day, certainly, but I do it weekly for various reasons and various people, and I don't charge for it. It's just a gift I'm given, and if I get information for somebody, I parlay that information to the person. I used to channel Mother Mary. I did a 3-day weekend event where I channeled Mother Mary, and I've channeled several people for several individuals, past relatives that had passed on and such, grandfathers and aunts and parents and such. So if I get a message, I pass it along, and what the person does with it that receives the message is up to them. I just deliver the mail. I don't read it and digest it for them.
That's amazing, and that's something that everyone should do. If you have a gift like that, you should help people in some way, and sometimes people, they miss their loved ones and things like that, and so they want to connect with them in some way, and that's fantastic, because you'll go to a place and they'll charge you X amount of dollars, and they'll try to make you come back to continue the message and pay some more, and it's terrible, because you're you're taking money from the people that need help and they need to have that connection again. And I applaud you for that. That's amazing.
Thank you. It's the least I can do.
So
now I do charge if I'm having.
What was that, Deborah?
Excuse me?
What did you say?
I said I do charge when I have like an event, but I don't typically charge to just do it for an individual.
Yeah, that's like I said, it's amazing. It's amazing. So I have another question here for Derrel. So Derrel, I don't know how, you've been a pretty busy guy, so you're probably not up in all the news all the time. But just recently, in the last couple of days, there was a report that the U.S. Navy is putting out some new guidelines for how their servicemen report what they want to say is UAPs, not UFOs. They want to stay away from that. And then a couple of days later, there was a report that there was a patent for what looks to be like a TR-3B or triangular ship with new technology. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think those two are connected in some way?
Well, I think, first of all, the reason the Navy is going along with this is because a lot of their pilots got mad and got tired of being looked at like they were mentally ill when they would report a UFO or fast walker, slow walker, whatever you want to call it. There's different terms. Depends on what group in the alphabet soup that you talk to. Office of Naval Investigations are going to use your term there. But the fact is that this is getting so obvious and so out there that you just can't play the game forever about we don't know anything, where all these people are mentally ill that are talking about it. You got a lot of pilots and others that are seeing it and have been for years and are tired of hiding out like that. So they're the ones that really got that started. The second thing is that I think you're going to see some quote-unquote revelations where we have new and exotic aircraft and spacecraft that's going to be rather remarkable here in the very near future, because some of this stuff's going to get reported and our guys are going to be told that's ours, don't report it. That's not a UFO, UAP, or fast walker, slow walker, whatever you want to call it or label it. It's not one of them. It may be engineered and it may be part of something else, but it's probably ours. And I suspect a lot of the sightings of people around, especially triangular craft and so on, you're in fact seeing some of the stuff that we have or someone else has is near us. There's nothing at all, there's nothing whatsoever confidential concerning these people. Whenever it comes to reporting this sort of thing, I can assure you that there is absolutely collusion on the part of the intelligence community, and instantaneously that looked like a UFO. Well, it's not, but it's a secret craft that we've got. I just don't believe that at all. Once you've been in the intelligence community and you see this sort of thing, you really don't. You just have to call things what they are. That either it in fact is a UFO or it is one of ours, but it probably was a UFO the day before.
Exactly. And that's absolutely true. So listen, you guys have been amazing guests. Now let's talk about the dates that people can expect to be able to attend the Skydancer conference. And I see something here. It's called Cowboys and Aliens.
That's just our nickname for the event.
Yeah, that's a nickname.
You see our logo, I took an and put a cowboy hat on him because it was rodeo time.
How appropriate. I mean, it is in Texas. It's got to have a cowboy hat on it.
Manny, so you were asking about how we structure. You were asking how we structure our events.
Yes.
And one of the things that we try to do is to make them fun. We're dealing with some pretty serious topics and some pretty scary stuff in many cases. and we try to add some lightness and some humor to it and make it fun. And so it does diminish the scariness of it somewhat. But, we put a little humor in it. We have people walking around with R2 robots you can take selfies with it. We have the characters from Star Wars walking around in costume. You can take pictures with them and stuff. So there's always fun things affiliated with our events at all times, plus a big room full of vendors of all sorts. So it's not just information, but there's a big fun element incorporated into it as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, because when I do the podcast, I'll do news reports, but I do it lighthearted because, if you dive into this head first every single time a news report comes out or something happens somewhere, you're bound to go bananas about it. It'll just drive you crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I see here, so the actual event is going to be May 18th and 19th at the Doubletree by Hilton at the Houston Airport. The link, if people want more information, they can go to skydancerufocon.com. Woo, that's a lot to say. And so what we have as far as individuals, keynote speakers, we got Mike Bara, of course, Derrel Sims, Jimmy Roberts, Doc Miller, and last but not least, the local guy, Daniel Jones. So it sounds like it's going to be an amazing thing to join. What else should we tell the folks to get them to go there and be part of this amazing event?
Well, Saturday night, they're going to have, for the first time, we're going to have a meet and greet mixer where you can come in, hear some music, have some appetizers. There'll be a cash bar. And you can party and hang out with the speakers and ask them questions one-on-one and hang out with them. And we also later that same evening, there will be a panel discussion that Derrel will be moderating and a town hall meeting where people can share their stories or ask their questions directly to the people that can answer them. So that gives them a little one-on-one FaceTime that they don't normally get at such events.
I got to tell you, Deborah, you just said that, and I was just reading a question from Ronnie. His question was, do they have an experiencer meeting?
Yeah.
It's 2 days long, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly, it's 2 days.
What I just described, the mixer for the meet and greet and all of that, that's considered the VIP ticket, and that is a separate. So on the website, it's all broken down so that you can come and do as little or as much as you are interested in.
That is amazing. And let me tell you, I think everyone should take part of this. Just like when we had Daniel Jones on here a few years ago talking about Aurora, it's the same thing. You got to support your Texas UFO conferences, the folks that let you talk about and experience, listen, research, and learn about the UFO phenomena, about the paranormal things that are going on throughout Texas. It's not just UFOs. Paranormal events have happened throughout Texas, throughout its history. And, hey, there's a lot of places you can look up and go visit and get yourself a good scare if you want.
Hey, Manny, why don't you come and do a live podcast from the event? Let me just be truthful. The reason I was pushing for this interview was because I was actually going to be out of town that weekend because I was all excited about it. And I said, well, if I can't go to the event, I've got to bring the event to the podcast. And that's why I had someone reach out to you guys. And that's the reason why. But definitely the next one, you can count on me being there. We surely do appreciate your support. And our next one's going to be in September. And it's going to be more Bigfoot oriented as well as some other things, but the big thrust will be on Bigfoot. So maybe you'll be able to come and join us as our guest at that one.
As our guest or the actual Bigfoot? I don't know. It's up to you guys. You let me know.
If you got 2 big feet, we can only have one.
No, we only deal in the big foot, not big feet.
That's right. Oh, man. So, listen, I do have one last question, again, from Ronnie Dawson. I tell you, the guy is, he's on the topic. He loves researching UFOs and things like that. So, his question was, and it's for you, Derrel, any information on Roger Lear and the implants that he discovered?
Yeah, the best way to answer that is I'm Roger Lear's mentor. He started under me. He didn't believe in any of this. He thought it was all a bunch of bunk. And later, after the first two surgeries, he got really interested in I think the fame and the possibility of the money hit him really hard. And anyway, he continued on and we parted ways sometime afterward. And he went his way and I went mine. And he did a total of 17 surgical interventions. I've done 25. The bottom line is that the difference, I think, between what I do and what he does is, number one is he was trying to hopscotch and do some things, but the thing that really bothered me about his situation was simply that sometimes if we didn't have all the information, he would sometimes make it up. And for that reason, I had to fire him. And I just, I'm not trashing the man or anything. I'm just saying that's why we had a split. And you got to stay with the evidence. I don't care if it's pro you or against you. You have to stay with the evidence, whatever it is. And that's a big deal for me. And I wish everybody well doing any of this work. I do. It's difficult any way you cut it, but you can't circumvent yourself and cut your throat by saying certain things are true that aren't, and making things look better than they are. To me, that's anathema to the very thing that I do.
No, that's absolutely correct, and that really, it throws that curveball in, because then when people find out, you start losing support, and you start losing the folks that really believe in the work that you're doing when they find out things like that, and that's pretty sad. But you're right. Sure. I mean, Mr. Lear did have a lot of research, and he did have a lot of followers and people that believed in what he was doing.
Yeah, and I have no complaints against any of that. The bottom line is, I think for your audience, from another direction here, is if you've had experiences, UFO or otherwise, and you do want to talk to somebody about it or whatever, I actually have an online support group. And these are really honest, straightforward people that are tough as nails. They're very private, very honest, and there's a vetting process to even get into it because they want to make sure you're real. And anyway, if anybody's interested in that, they can email me. Just simply go to alienhunter.org and click on Alien Hunter, and it'll automatically email me with your questions. I do answer all my email. If I don't answer your email, I never got it.
Fantastic. And actually, for those of you who are interested, the link is in the description. It's one of the many links that Derrel provided early on as part of his bio. So feel free to go on there, click on it, contact Derrel. Just look. You can even go in and just visit the website too and see what he has on there and take in that information. And if you need to reach out to him, like you said, go ahead and reach out to him. Included in that is also the link to the UFO conference in Houston, Skydancer. Visit that. Really consider going. The thing about UFO conferences is when folks don't show up, even though they have interest in it, they tend to die out. Let's keep Skydancer alive, keep it popular. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong visiting and basically interacting with folks that have the same mindset as you, have the same questions, and are looking for answers. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. Hopefully in the playback, we didn't have too much of that degradation of the feed. But even if we did, guess what? You guys are more than welcome to always come back. And like I said, next one in September, you might just see a moonraker there.
Fantastic.
Our time.
Yeah, or I'll
Thank
be
you very
dressed
much.
like Bigfoot. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So listen, I want to thank everyone for listening, and check out the links in the description. And this is the episode. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you showing up, and I appreciate you guys for listening. This is Manny Moonraker. I'm signing off for this interview. And as I always say, ciao, Bella.